the man who planted hope in the desert. In the vast expanse of a sun-bleached desert, where the wind sculpts the sand into ever-shifting waves and the days stretch endlessly beneath a relentless sun, there lived a man named Elias. The world had long forgotten this patch of earth, forgotten its promise, its people, and the dreams they once nurtured beneath a sky so wide it seemed to swallow hope itself. To outsiders, the desert was lifeless, a place where nothing could grow, and where only the most stubborn or desperate dared remain. But Elias was not like most men. He saw not only what the desert was, but what it could become. He remembered stories from his childhood, stories his grandmother whispered as dusk painted the sands gold, tales of an age when the land was lush and green, when birdsong filled the air and laughter echoed among the trees. Those stories clung to Elias's heart, even as the world around him hardened and cracked beneath the sun. Every morning, Elias awoke before dawn. He carried a sack slung over his shoulder. Inside it, a collection of seeds. Some he had gathered from the last stubborn trees that clung to life in the shadows of rock. Others had been traded from travelers, or saved from seasons past. To anyone else, the seeds were worthless. Too dry, too small, too fragile to stand a chance against the desert. But to Elias, each seed was a promise, a whisper from the past, and a hope for the future. At first, the villagers laughed at him. They watched from their windows as Elias trudged out into the wilderness, stooping to press seeds into the earth with careful hands. They shook their heads at his stubbornness, his refusal to accept what everyone knew, that nothing could grow here, not anymore. "He's chasing ghosts," they muttered. "He's wasting his time." But Elias paid them no mind. He knelt in the sand, dug small holes with his fingers, and planted each seed with a silent prayer. The days turned into weeks, and the weeks into months. The sun burned overhead, and the winds howled through the empty spaces where trees had once stood. Sometimes, Elias would return home with his hands bleeding, his skin cracked and raw from the unforgiving elements. Yet every morning, he returned to his work. As the years passed, the villagers noticed small changes. A patch of green, barely more than a handful of blades, appeared near a rocky outcrop. In another spot, a tiny sapling pushed its way through the cracked earth, its leaves trembling in the breeze. Some said it was a trick of the light, or the result of a rare rainstorm. But Elias knew better. He visited his seedlings each day, tending them with water he carried for miles, shielding them from the wind with handmade shelters, and sometimes simply sitting with them, offering quiet encouragement. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon and painted the sky with streaks of crimson and violet, a boy from the village approached Elias. His name was Sammy, and though he was young, he had already learned the language of resignation that the desert taught so well. But something about Elias's persistence stirred a curiosity inside him. "Why do you do this?" Sammy asked. "Why do you keep planting, when nothing ever grows?" Quote, Elias smiled, his face weathered but kind. "The desert is not empty," he replied. "It is only waiting, waiting for someone to believe in it again. These seeds are hope, and hope, like the desert, needs patience." Sammy thought about this as he watched Elias water a sapling, his hands gentle and sure. That night, the boy dreamed of green fields and cool shade, dreams he had never dared imagine before. Seasons changed, and slowly, miraculously, the desert began to stir. Where once there had been only dust and silence, tufts of grass took root. The saplings grew taller, their branches reaching for the sun. Birds returned, drawn by the promise of shelter and food. Flowers bloomed in colors the villagers had never seen, their petals gleaming against the sand. With each new plant, the desert softened, its edges blurring into a tapestry of life. The people of the village began to notice. Some brought water to help Elias. Others gathered seeds and planted them alongside him. Children played among the young trees, their laughter ringing out across the valley. The old stories did not seem so impossible anymore, the land remembered its song. Years passed, and the oasis flourished. Where once the desert threatened to swallow hope, now it cradled it. The village grew, and life returned in abundance. Yet through it all, Elias remained humble. He never claimed credit for the transformation. When asked how he had changed the desert, he simply shook his head and said, "I did not change it. I only gave it a chance to be what it was always meant to be. Elias's story spread beyond the village, inspiring others to believe in the power of patience, persistence, and hope. People from distant lands came to see the green oasis blooming in the heart of the desert, and many returned home with pockets full of seeds and hearts full of possibility. The lesson of Elias is simple, yet profound. In a world that often seems barren and unforgiving, it is easy to surrender to despair. It is easy to believe that nothing can change, that our efforts are in vain. But every act of kindness, every moment of hope, is a seed. Though the ground may seem unyielding, and though the results may not be seen for years, those seeds matter. They are the beginning of something new, something beautiful. Elias taught his village, and all who heard his story, that hope is not a fragile thing to be protected from disappointment, but a force to be planted boldly, even in the harshest of places. He showed that true change does not come quickly or easily, but through quiet, steady persistence. And above all, he reminded everyone that sometimes, all it takes to transform the world is one person willing to believe that growth is possible, even in the most unlikely of places. So, when you find yourself facing your own desert, whether it is a barren stretch of land, a difficult season in life, or a challenge that seems insurmountable, remember Elias. Remember that hope, when sown with love and patience, can bloom where no one thought possible. And in planting that hope, you may one day create a forest where others can find shade, shelter, and inspiration.